Do you want to start your own plants from seeds? Have you considered a grow light setup, but you don't have the time or energy or the budget for one? Maybe you've run out of windowsill space. Well, winter sowing just might be the solution for you. Hi, I'm Ming Ning, and welcome to my channel, Home with Mrs. Heil. I love gardening, but I live in a home where space is really limited. Now, a few years ago, when I discovered my love of growing plants, I considered, well, how am I going to grow all these plants from seeds? I don't have the space or the money right now for a grow light setup, and I really only have a few windowsills that have enough sunlight to grow healthy seedlings. That's when I found winter sowing. What is winter sowing? Winter sowing is a method of gardening that uses recycled containers, passive energy from the sun, and your natural weather patterns to grow seedlings. It's low cost, low maintenance, and pretty much all you need are your seeds, a container, and some sort of growing medium like soil or potting mix. Winter sowing is great if you don't have the money, time, or energy to put into a whole grow light setup. You don't need to buy fancy lights, you don't need to figure out which bulbs you need, and you don't need to remember to water your plants for the most part. Winter sowing relies, again, on the sun and your natural rain to germinate them and to grow them into seedlings. It's the closest thing to set it and forget it for starting seedlings. The container that you grow your seedlings in pretty much acts like a mini greenhouse. As the sun comes in, the plastic keeps the warmth inside the container. This gives your little seeds a jump start, creating a higher temperature inside the container than outside. However, it's not such a vast difference like growing indoors where you have to harden off your seedlings before you can fully transplant them outside. It's close enough to the natural weather patterns where you can just take your seedlings and plant them directly into the ground without worrying. In fact, many gardeners find that the plants they grow from winter sowing are stronger and thrive much better than the plants that they start indoors in a windowsill or a grow light setup. In this video, I'm going to give you a brief overview and how-to for winter sowing. If you have questions after this video, like what kind of soil can I use, what kind of container, and really specific detailed things, hit the subscribe button and get notifications for my future videos where I'm going to go in depth to each aspect of winter sowing. To get started, you're going to need to find a container to use. The first aspect is that you want a container that lets the light in. It can be as clear as this milk jug, or it can be, an opaque type of plastic. All you do to check is to make sure that from inside the container, you can see the light shining through. The second thing about your container is that it should be an adequate size. I've used all sorts of plastic containers that come from food products, such as yogurt containers, salad mix containers, juice jugs, soda bottles, but the milk jug is kind of the classic go-to for the winter sower because it's readily available. Lots of people have these to give away each week, and you can start collecting them. What I found is that you want to make sure that the container can give you at least 3 inches of soil depth and a few extra inches for the seedling to grow. Some gardeners use an open container and then put a plastic bag over it. Other gardeners have large plastic bins that they put smaller containers inside. So the possibilities are pretty much endless. Use what you have and what you have available to you. The only thing is that I personally would use something that had food in it so that it's safe and there's no chemical residue to worry about. Third is you want the container to have some type of opening. A milk jug already has a hole in it. This lets the rain in, and in the later months of winter sowing, it lets the excess heat out. And lastly is that you want to be able to punch holes on the bottom. With a milk jug, it's really easy. You can do it with a knife or scissors. Some of the harder, thicker plastics, you'll have to use a drill bit or a knife. Once you have your container, you're going to go ahead and cut around the middle. Now I like to, again, leave a few inches for soil depth. So on a milk jug, I cut pretty much right around the base of the handle. This plastic is thin enough where you can bend it, snip a little hole, and I like to leave one side as a hinge. On a milk jug, it already has, again, that opening on the top, so all I need to do is add a few holes on the bottom for drainage. So here you have 4 holes. They're about the size of a pencil in diameter. That should let enough moisture out to drain out so that the seeds aren't sitting in water the whole time, which can lead to them rotting, or when they're seedlings, the roots aren't sitting in moisture either. Next, you're going to fill your container with your growing medium. The preferred growing medium is something like a potting mix, where there's something to retain moisture, but to drain excess moisture, and there's nutrients in it that the seedlings can feed on to grow. Personally, I've always made my own mix using compost, coconut coir, or peat moss, and either sand or soil kind of mixed in for bulk and for minerals and stuff like that. But to go the easy route, a good potting mix will do. Okay. So I've got my soil mix in there. You sprinkle your seeds in. Now I tend to overcrowd mine. You want to plant it to the depth that's written on the packet, which is typically twice the diameter of the seed. Just kind of pack it in. I like to put a label inside so that when I transplant them, I can just pick this up and insert it wherever I transplant my seedlings. Then I close it up, and I like to label it on the outside again. A tip is to use a China marker or a grease pencil to write on your label and on your container, because this will not fade, unlike Sharpies, which will fade in the sun. And the last thing you do is you just seal it up with pretty much duct tape. And there you go. Now we just need to find an adequate place for it to be exposed to the elements. So sun and rain, because that's what's going to provide the warmth and the moisture the seeds need to germinate and for the seedlings to start growing. If you live in a windy place, you may want to consider some place where it can be shielded from the wind so it doesn't blow away, or it could be completely exposed and you just have to secure it down. I've seen people stick broomsticks through the handles or put a heavy metal chain through it. The great thing about winter sowing is that it's so adaptable. Basically, fit it to your needs with the resources you have. It's really not that complicated. And there you have it. That's how you winter sow seeds to grow seedlings for your garden. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for future videos where I dive into all your questions and details about every aspect of winter sowing. And happy gardening!